Hello, I'm Vladimir Shirogorov, a historian and author of the book War on the Eve of Nations, Conflict and Militaries in Eastern Europe, 1450-1500, and Strategies of Ukrainian War, 1500-1800, and a lot of other essays and books published in Italy, Germany, the United States, Russia, and other countries in Russian and English. It's a first presentation webinar on my course, Military Strategy for Warfare, Politics and Business, and it devotes to its Module 1, that's maybe the most important in front of other discussions of this course, because it introduced to the theoretical base, theoretical foundation of strategy. And I make some slides to assist to this presentation, and I would like to attract your attention to them. I will place them on my channel with Telegram, where you could study them separately from the discussion of this webinar, because as ordinary my slides are more profound than my oral speech. Ordinarily all written materials, especially illustrated written materials, are more profound, more illustrative, more deep than the oral discussion, because okay, it is the basic difference between the oral and written learning. So I start this webinar attracting your attention to the slide, to the cover of the slide, to its first page. And first of all, to illustrate my course, I use a picture that describing strategy maybe in the most attractive way, and explains why military strategy is necessary for understanding of all other kinds of strategies that are propagated, promoted today. Between different kinds of strategies that we use today, the most learned, the strategy that attracts most attention is business strategy. However, maybe business strategy is the most youngest between different kinds of strategy. And another kind of strategy, political strategy, that is attended by the people who are interested in political matters, is the second oldest kind of strategy, while military strategy is of course the first strategy that emerged in the first half of the 19th century. All other instruments and terms with which different kinds of strategy are operating, they belong to military strategy as well. For example, the notions, definitions like the operational art, tactics, or fighting technique, or technique of operations, they belong to military strategy, to military science as well. And without understanding them properly, it's impossible to operate them, to construct and execute, carry out really effective strategy with achieving the final results. So, the topic of this presentation is why is strategy. Strategy now is a widespread definition that's applied to some long-term thinking, planning and activity for to achieve some grand objectives. However, this definition of strategy, this approach to strategy is wrong in its roots. It does not provide to construct and execute the strategy in really effective way, because strategy is one of the main tools, one of the main instruments or approach to make the things done. And this special attention of strategy for achievement of the final results of the objectives is very important. And if you pay your attention to the picture on the first page of my slides, you find that there are two groups of peoples, because there are two different delegations. The delegation of Ukrainian Cossacks, led by Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky, and delegation of the Polish nobles meeting in the residence of the Ukrainian Hetman in Ukraine. And there is one of the group of the antique statues on the background of picture that explain that their actions are in some way blessed or directed by their ancient figures who embody the strategic actions. Two groups of two delegations, they are placed by the painter on the chessboard floor. If you take half of the books on strategies that are published now, maybe this half of them has chessboard or chess on the cover. It means that we have on this picture a classic strategic chessboard with different figures that illustrate the strategy in action, one of the most important acts of strategy in the early modern time, in the history of modern mankind. It is emergence of the Cossack state, the state of Ukrainian Cossacks that was a kind of the state in the foundation of modern Ukraine. It is the middle of the 17th century, and the Ukrainian hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky has a mace, a symbol of Cossack power, but not in his hands, but thrown at his feet. Why he did that? Because the mace of the Cossack hetman was a symbol of power that was imposed on him, vested on him by the Polish king or the community of the Polish nobles, Korona Renyi Polone, while Bogdan Khmelnytsky, being the ruler of the independent Cossack state, preferred another symbol of his power. It was a sword that he took in his hands, and throwing the mace on the floor and taking the sword, he expressed one of the main definitions of strategy, that strategy is an act to achieve power by applying the force. The mace was a symbol of the gift, of the vesting of power by the Polish king, and the sword was a symbol of the power of Cossack warrior class that took over power in Ukraine by military means. Achieving power by military means was the main line of strategy in the period of its emergence. Strategy was invented as the thinking and planning to achieve power by military means. Another symbol of sword in the hands of Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky was his achieving his power of the independent ruler of the Cossack state from the Polish community of the nobles, from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth by fighting. Obtaining power by fighting, by military means, was the objective of strategy in the period of its emergence. This picture tells that in the period of its emergence, blessed by the antique figures on the background of the two delegations on this picture, achieving of power by military means, by force, was the main topic of strategy. And this topic of strategy is highly different from the strategies that are in proposal in the today books and classes that describe strategy as a long-term thinking and acting to achieve some abstract, peaceful goals. Strategy was, in the period of its emergence, was an action, military action, to take over power by defeating the enemy, by achieving upper hand over enemy, by distracting the enemy and destroying it. Action against enemy was in the heart of strategy. It was the pivot of strategy, its axis, and returning from futile strategies of the today proposals to the core, to the fundamental notions of the strategy in the period of its emergence is very important, because only this true understanding of strategy as an instrument of taking over power by force, only this understanding of strategy is effective to construct it and to execute it. And this picture is a great illustration for the proverb that was expressed by the first author who described strategy as a way of thinking and action in the modern period for the modern executives, the German officer Karl von Clausewitz, who told that everything very simple, seemingly, in strategy, but it doesn't mean that everything is very easy. It means that it's simple to discuss strategy, observing actions and intentions of other people, but it is hard task to construct one's own strategy and execute it to achieve its objectives. Moving along this presentation, you found the audience of my course. The audience of my course, according to the discussion of the first page, on the first page of the slides to this webinar, is a community of executives and operational leaders who are working on two upper levels of the activity. First is the strategic level and second is the operational level. It's necessary to tell that the main terms, the main definitions and notions that describe the activity in the textbooks on strategy that are in proposal today, they are borrowed from the same military materials that was used by the founders of strategy as a discipline. Strategy, operational art, tactics, fighting tactics, used for example today as the marketing tactics or techniques of marketing, they are the military definitions. And it is necessary to understand, to learn them as the military definitions in their base sense. And study of military strategy and military art and military science in its initial sense, in the sense of military history, is necessary to understand strategy properly, to rethink the business strategy and other strategies, political strategy and other strategies that are in proposal today, and they are often lead nowhere but in a deadlock. Focus of the of module 1 of this course is introduction to strategy. Introduction to strategy, a theoretical introduction, is rather necessary for understanding the strategy, considering misuse of this definition, of this notion, of this term by many authors, by many thinkers and teachers who propose strategy in different kinds of humankind activity. Theoretical understanding of strategy is necessary because only the proper understanding of strategy could be a foundation for construction of true effective strategy to achieve the final objective. This course, it's module 1, describes composition and structure of strategy, because as any discipline of thinking and acting, strategy has its special composition, its special elements and its structure, and it lays out the principles of strategy and requirements to strategy. One of the main principles of strategy is that, if necessary, the operational leader, the strategic leader, has to violate the rules. But before violating the rules of strategy, it's necessary to understand them. Module 1 from the very beginning provides very important outcomes of learning. It's not futile learning of theoretical base of strategy, but it provides the anchors of knowledge that could be used from the very beginning for construction and execution of effective strategy. First of all, among the anchors of knowledge, there are understanding of strategy in its different theoretical incarnations, in its different theoretical understanding. And it is necessary to pave the right way to the strategic objective, because mass of the strategic knowledge, like the mass of knowledge in any other kind of science, kind of discipline, leads only to disaster. Only a clear, highlighted, well highlighted route could lead to effective achievement of the objectives. Different strategic concepts must be understood. First of all, difference between grand strategy, military strategy, business strategy, political strategy, national strategy, and some other strategies of different branches of activity, different industries must be understood, because now different strategic notions from military strategy are migrating to other disciplines, and most of them provides only to disaster. Knowledge of strategies, composition and structure is necessary for thinking people who construct their own strategy of success, because distorted, uneven compilation of strategy leads to disaster as well. Strategy must be fine, must be refined, especially for its user. Strategy, it's necessary to differentiate strategy from other kinds of thinking activity about grand matters, from philosophy, geopolitics, system analysis, interdisciplinary approach, and so on. Why it's necessary to divide strategy from them? First of all, because among them, strategy is the only tool to make the things done. It is the great difference of strategy from other kinds of thinking about grand matters, that it is the instrument to achieve the final objective, to make the things done. And this difference of strategy, this special feature of strategy, is the big gift that must be used, that must be exploited. Strategy's interaction with other levels of activity is very important, because strategy is not a neighbor of operational art, of tactic, of fighting technique, or technique of execution of other things, not only military things. Strategy is not their neighbor. Strategy is their controller. Strategy is like a large picture onto which all other kinds of activity belong. And considering that strategy embraces them, it is necessary to understand with what kind of rules strategy controls them. Sorting out what is strategy and what is not is necessary as well. First of all, it's necessary for understanding of one's own actions, because considering that you are carrying out some strategy, but indeed do not carrying it is very dangerous. Another side of this story is that if you do not discern the strategy of your enemy, you shall be destroyed. And this rule of survival, is necessary for understanding of strategy, because timely discerning of strategy of your enemy is the precondition of survival. My course is supplied with a plenty of instructional materials. First of all, it's a textbook. The textbooks as a written material is much more profound than the video classes with slides. But the textbook and video classes both are necessary for understanding of strategy, because if the textbook provides the variety and spread of materials to understand the strategy, video classes and slides provide the focus, pointing out on the main principles, on the choke points of strategy. And another, a third kind of the instructive materials that I propose to my students is anthology on strategy that consists of the important fragments from the books on strategy, books on military history, strategic history, political history, business strategy, history, that are must read to understand strategy. Structure of the model consists of a video class that continues around 1.5 hours, webinar on the topic of the module that continues around 1 hour, some dialogue in a messenger that continues around a half of hour, and unlimited time for a student that who want to compile, to work his or her own study on some strategic case. Strategy, learning of strategy. Learning of strategy is necessary first of all for to develop the strategic thinking, and it is the best way to develop the strategic thinking to make one's own strategic study. I illustrate the slides for my presentation of Module 1 for the course Military Strategy for Warfare, Politics and Business with some pictures. And the pictures are placed on the pages of the topics that compose Module 1. And the pictures that are placed on the three first topics, entering strategy, political strategy and business strategy, illustrate the political history, strategic political history of the Ottoman Empire. That is a focus of studies on strategy of many today scholars. And unexpected turn of events in the reign of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, or Kanuni, as he is known in the European and Ottoman history, illustrates what is political history and how it's connected with the military history. The four figures are Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent in the middle, his beloved concubine, then wife Hurrem or Roxalana at his top, Italian Countess Giulia Fondi, and famous Corsair, Mediterranean Corsair, Khaireddin Barbarossa at his left. What kind of strategy connected them, and why this another example of historical military strategies is important for understanding of a craft of strategy for our today course of events, for our today application and use. When Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent started to fell in love with Hurrem, he started remake the bureaucratic state and army of palace slaves that was created by his predecessor, Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, to a household structure where the formal bureaucratic functions of the man changed to the family function in the big family of Sultan. However, some statesmen of the Ottoman Empire abstracted and resisted this conversion, considering that it could lead to weakness of the Ottoman Empire and its crumbling. One of them was Corsair Khaireddin Barbarossa, who turned to capture in Italy the most famous beauty of the period, Countess Giulia Fondi, to change Hurrem as a lover of Sultan Suleiman and to stop the reconstruction of the Ottoman government in family way. He landed in Italy, encircled the castle of Countess Fondi, but she narrowly escaped after killing some of Barbarossa's soldiers. She escaped naked, and a knight who helped her to escape was executed later because he thought too much of her nakedness. However, this failure of Barbarossa led to strengthening of relationships between Suleiman and Hurrem, and transformation of the Ottoman government in family way was finished in the struggle between their sons over succession to Suleiman over the Ottoman throne. This struggle later led to division of the Ottoman Empire to two different hostile camps. The camp of reborn palace slaves who imagined themselves the lords of the Ottoman Empire, and the Turkish majority of its population result of this division was civil war that destroyed, that ravaged the Ottoman Empire during 1.5 centuries and resulted in its ultimate collapse. It is an example how a small military operation that was a fragment of the large political strategy had the ultimate important consequence for a large political body of the Ottoman Empire. And today, observing the political strategies of different parties, of different factions of the today politics, we could find the similar small military operations and political actions that could determine, in case of their failure or success, one or another way of development of the big political bodies that reign today. Second illustrative slide of this presentation, its topics of Module 1, number 2, illustrate another focus of the today strategic studies. It is interaction between strategy and technology. Interaction of strategy and technology is rather important. Maybe it is the most important thing today when we have a seemingly breakthrough development of technology like artificial intelligence and unmanned aerial devices in military affairs, nuclear technologies, long-range, high-precision missiles, and so on. However, in the 17th century, 16th and 18th century, in the military operations, we could find some precedents of this strategic development, of technologies that could advise us what we have to expect from the current technological breakthroughs and how we have to manage them, how we have to control them. One of them was the amphibious landing operations with the fleets equipped with firearms. Main strategical actors of the early modern period embraced this new technology of strikes from the ship decks to the shore objectives with firearms, with guns. They were the Spanish Empire, upper picture, Ottoman Empire, right picture below, Ukrainian Cossacks, middle picture below, and Muscovy or Russia, left picture below. All of them applying this new technology of landing of infantry with firearms and fire strikes on the onshore targets with shipborne firearms achieved great strategic breakthroughs. Spain created the global empire. The Ottomans conquered the Balkans and most of the Near East. The Ukrainian Cossacks created their military capabilities that brought them just a bit later an independent state, and Russia or Muscovy conquered Siberia and moved over the Ural Mountains from Eastern Europe to the Pacific. And I see that if we compare the development of the today breakthrough technologies like artificial intelligence and others with the development of the new technologies of the 17th century, for our understanding, for our impression, they would be similar, splendid, similar magic, like the technologies of the past. Controlling them, managing them, is the great art that learning of military history could provide, and discourse of interaction between technology and strategy is one of the pivotal lines of my course. And when I present this discourse, I always pay attention to the basic structure of strategy, the basic structure that I described a few minutes before. That strategy is an action to achieve power against enemy by means of force. This structure provides to understand strategy, to understand the main tools to tame the technical innovations and use them to achieve the final objectives with less cost and in more effective way. From the very beginning, from the Module 1, my course established some anchors of knowledge that provide to use strategy as a tool to make the things done from the very beginning. They are described on this page, and I wouldn't spend time to reading them aloud. But first of all, I have to attract your attention to some very important notions that Module 1 provide, and that could help to understand strategy and to use it as a powerful instrument of action. First of all, it is the ability of strategy to change the existing balance of force. The rule that is promoted now by authors, scholars and practitioners, that strategy is a skill to balance resources and result, is basically wrong. Strategy was created by the founders of this discipline to distort the ratio, the balance between resources and results, to achieve the results bigger than the resources in hand. And this ability of strategy to provide a way to use the inferior resources in a way to achieve superior results is very important, and it is one of the skills that my course proposed from the very beginning, and that could be found in Module 1. I invite you to subscribe to my channels with YouTube and Telegram and attend my course. I'm Vladimir Shirogorov, a historian and author of the books War on the Eve of Nations, Conflict in Militaries in Eastern Europe, 1450-1500, and Strategies of Ukrainian War, 1500-1800. And many other essays and books on history published in Russian and English in the United States, Italy, Germany, Russia, and other countries. Goodbye.